Hi everybody, and welcome back to the what is it, fourth now installment of this little book club on the side. I finally got around to reading and finishing The Great Gatsby, thank God, because I was struggling with it at the start, as some of you might know. Also, by the way, I am going to be posting on my main channel. I just left it a little bit to marinate. I tried to make a new video, but it was frankly terrible, so I've had to go back to the drawing board, and God knows what I'll come out with next, but hopefully soon. I don't know when. For Great Gatsby, it's essentially a book, a disguised, bittersweet romance sort of story, which is possibly my personal favourite genre of movie and book. Some of them being movies like Once and Lost in Translation and so on and so forth. Once is probably one of my favourite movies of all time, I think. And that sort of movie is, or that sort of medium is probably my favourite, and I didn't even know that about Great Gatsby. I knew nothing about the book. I hadn't watched the movie before I read the book. I knew nothing about it really. And so it was a pleasant surprise to see, how the book transformed. The book started off slow. Oh shit, sorry. Oh fuck. This I suppose I didn't spoil anything, did I? I kind of did. Whatever. I don't know. It's a book about the sort of like narrator. It's a first-person perspective from a gentleman called Nick Carraway, who is navigating this life as a fairly, middle-class man living in New York, but a fairly run-down house. It's not run-down. It's like, it's all right. He's renting it out, but next to him, in the West Egg of New York, is a really, really rich and mysterious man by the name of Gatsby. The story's told from that first-person perspective of Nick. He sells bonds for a living in Wall Street, but he's not particularly prodigious at it. He's just normal. But he's found himself living in this really rich area, but just in a shittier house. And because his neighbor is this Gatsby, Nick Carraway kind of gets swept up and caught up in these little parties that Gatsby would host. I don't know why I said that like like I was one of the characters in the Great Gatsby parties. No. But yeah, he goes to some of these parties, he starts to get caught up in this scene, and some interpersonal relationships start to develop as a result, and then Nick Carraway goes on this sort of adventure of not even wanting to, but getting caught up in finding out the true nature of who Gatsby is, how he accrued his millions and so on and so forth, and this little story bubbling underneath the surface. This book started out slow, but I read it because it was deemed a classic, and I thought, okay, well, why not? However, by the end, this book completely transformed everything for me. This book fucking split me in two, and the writing in it is the beauty, or rather the beautiful writing, is sporadically, sprinkled in the first third of the book. But in the second 2/3, the writing is just sublime, and you essentially get transported into this world where Nick Carraway sees it as I can't spoil too much, but it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And even by the end, even given everything, it's still a world that I just wish I could live in forever. And I did get a deep sense of longing at the end of the book as well, which is always the sign of good media, is when you feel a sense of longing afterwards, I've found, at least. For instance, with the latest movie I just watched, Marty Supreme, what a brilliant movie that was. I'm going to make a video about it because it was so good, but I have already narrated it. I'm just too lazy to chop it up. But if you stick at it and if you get through it till the end, you will have read one of the top 10 books of your entire life, I think. Well, it depends if you're into that sort of genre, but just trust me, it's really fucking good. I highly recommend it. It's had mixed reviews online, but I think those are people who just saw the first 20 pages and kind of got put off. I did at the start. My God, I hated this book at the start. I thought it was so, pretentiously written, almost like seemingly forcing complexity where it didn't need to be forced. But by the middle, I was completely, it had taken me, So the mixed reviews online might be from people who haven't given it enough of a fair shot, in my opinion, because the book is amazing. I highly recommend it, go read the thing. Now for the spoiler section. Also, as part of this, this is the spoiler section, by the way, so go click off if you haven't read the book and go fucking read the book, okay, it's great. But I don't know if any of you had the same experience after reading the book, or before, in which you watched the movie, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio doing that famous meme where he's like holding up the wine glass and giving that silly look. Just how shit was that movie? I mean, the movie was so bad. By the end of the book, I was completely split in two. I was like, wow, this is just the best book. This is so good. Like, this broke me. I watched the movie as a result after, just to see how it was visually portrayed. And by the way, most of it was pretty much entirely what I had pictured in my head, but visualized poorly, you know. And the actors, I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio did a decent job of playing Gatsby, but even then I didn't really, you know, I don't think it should have been Leonardo DiCaprio casted as Gatsby. Daisy, why was she casted as Daisy? Listen, I love that actress. She's the main actress in Never Let Me Go, another very bittersweet sort of love story, and it's a movie, and I love that movie. But she was just completely the wrong actress to cast in the movie for this one. The only one they got right was, I'd say, Tom Buchanan. They got Tom Buchanan right. And Jordan Baker, whoever the actress is, I think her name is Elizabeth Duchetti or something, I don't know. But the woman who played Jordan Baker was fucking great. She was perfect, like she was spot on. Everything I read of Jordan Baker, I'd essentially pictured nearly 100% identically to how the movie or the actress in the movie portrayed Jordan Baker. She played the role perfectly. But yeah, the movie was just shit. I'm sorry, the movie was awful. I mean, they left out so many important details of the book, but kept a lot of unnecessary, you know, moments in the book, in the movie, and that just baffled me. And it was shit. I'm sorry, the movie was shit. But anyway, this is about the book. The book was really, really, really damn good. I'm gonna have to grab my Kindle here. Bear with me. Yes, I know. How dare I use a Kindle? Come on, guys, it's the 21st century. I mean, come on. We didn't get flying cars. At least let me use your Kindle without feeling guilty. But what did I even write about this book? I wrote notes. Wow, we're moving up in the world. sxrawn is taking notes on books. He's reading. Tom Buchanan. There was a quote about Tom Buchanan quite early on that Nick Carraway described him as. Just perhaps after he was going, or before he went nuts at the dinner table, if you know that scene. Moving swiftly onwards, he was described to drift on forever, seeking a little wistfully for the dramatic turbulence of some irrecoverable football game. And I think that really, I mean, that quote alone sums up Tom Buchanan's character very, very well, because even though he's quite, you know, linear, quite one-dimensional as a character, I think it sums up his sort of aspirations and him as a character as a whole in a quotation, which is why I noted it down. I was like, okay, well, this is literally him. To a T, you know, clinging on to some sort of, some form of glory, you know. Also, was it football game? Wasn't it polo or something? I don't know why I've written football game here, but I don't know. Tom Buchanan, fairly one-dimensional character. That's the quote I got to summarize him. He's a big brute who likes to read, but isn't very clever, and so he, you know, kind of goes off on tangents. It's a sort of man of the household, but not clever enough to be the man of the household sort of dynamic going on there. And you know what? I think that the reason I was so upset with how Daisy was portrayed in the movie is because I interpreted her as like she portrayed, or she gave this facade of like a ditzy sort of, you know, unintelligent girl, but she was really intelligent beneath the surface. That's what I got from the book. You know, the book made me think, okay, Daisy is sort of a split personality in the sense that she can essentially cohesively transition between being some, you know, just as the daughter of a rich man rather, fairly ditzy and fairly, you know, unassuming, to being this really clever and really observant girl who I thought was her real self, but, you know, perhaps it was just a different avenue of how somebody likes to be. But in the movie, she was portrayed as like the second one only, but her stupidness being real. And I don't know why I didn't really understand that. Like, I thought it would have been like, okay, guys, I'm not clever. Look at me, guys, I'm not clever, while hiding the fact that you are clever. That's the impression I got from Daisy. You know, essentially trying to hide underneath the sort of hide beneath the woodworks. And I think the ending kind of further cemented that in having done a hit and run, prioritizing her life over, this magical love story between Gatsby, subsequently letting Gatsby take the blame for it. I don't know if she let Tom Buchanan, speak to Myrtle Wilson, or not Myrtle, Wilson about that. But she didn't like reach out to Gatsby. She went back with Tom Buchanan. She didn't go to Gatsby's funeral. She kind of just moved on, and it showed insidious, but albeit like clever sort of pathway for her life to be walked upon. What am I saying? I don't know, because I'm going off the cuff here, guys. I'm not writing anything down. I've written some like brief quotes and stuff, but I don't know what I'm saying. Bear with me, please. But it's by the ending, when she didn't even go to Gatsby's funeral or whatever, it seemed like a really insidious plot by her to sort of abandon her life, or this idea of some magical life, just to prioritize herself in favor of security with which she got with Tom Buchanan because of her hit and run. So and I think that little intimate moment between Tom Buchanan and Daisy after she did the hit and run was kind of signaling that Tom was like trying to take care of her and saying, listen, I'll get Gatsby, we'll get out of here, you'll be safe, and it takes a lot of willpower and a lot of observation skills and a lot of pragmatism to see that and think, okay, that's objectively the better option for me, rather than clinging to this love story or this idealized love story. So I thought that's how she was, Daisy. She's a really complicated character, I thought, but she wasn't in the movie, which was sad. Yeah, also it's worth noting the whole book, I thought it was kind of like Scott Fitzgerald or Nick Carraway was kind of using Tom Buchanan as a bit of a punching bag, kind of like, they kind of used him as the vehicle for ideas they find silly, or a character they might find silly. A type of person, an archetype, the big brute who knows nothing but thinks they know a lot sort of thing. I just thought that was worth noting. It just seemed like this was Tom Buchanan was a bit of like a humiliation ritual of a character. He was just all around, distasteful. I also thought it was so interesting to see, because you're not given much information, if at all any, about Nick Carraway, the main character. You're not given any meaningful information pretty much throughout the entire book. You're never just hit with information on Nick Carraway, but by the end you can find yourself relating to him more than everybody else. Not just because the book is narrated from his perspective, but like they kind of, or rather Scott Fitzgerald kind of wormed his sort of facts and details and massaged the way he handles encounters into giving you a picture of how Nick Carraway is, which is nice. He didn't explicitly give you, a sort of tour on the inside of Nick Carraway's mind. He kind of eased you into it. The end was haunting. The end was absolutely brilliant. The description of the like sort of vacuousness of Gatsby's once cherished dream was just completely, soul crushing. It was, this book essentially to me, it was like a sort of interrogation of the gaudiness of that sort of American dream and how hollowed Scott F. Fitzgerald perceived it to be at its core. And in a way, by the end, he didn't want this effect, definitely, but by the end he made me sort of want to move to New York in that time period, to be Nick Carraway or any of the characters and experience those absolute heights that sort of place can offer you, and then the subsequent longing that accompanies it thereafter. Undoubtedly it's gonna all come crashing down, the party can't go on forever, but the book romanticized it to a point where it made me want to go to New York, experience those heights, have everything come crashing down, and then have that longing afterwards. Maybe I'm just a sucker for longing. I love that shit. He didn't romanticize it. I'm, misspeaking, but yeah, you want to live in the book. You will want to. Or rather, if you have read it, you probably do want to. By the end, I had grown to love Gatsby, I think. But this is the thing. I grew to love him in the book. The movie Gatsby was still a cunt by the end of it, but the book does a far better job of getting you acquainted with Gatsby in an intimate but not explicit way with Nick Carraway, and it makes that a compliment at the end that Nick Carraway gave to Gatsby. I think it was something along the lines of, "They're a rotten bunch, you're worth more than all of them put together," something along those lines, paraphrase. It gives that compliment weight, but in the movie it just felt like Nick Carraway was kind of just saying that, like he didn't even mean it, you know? But in the book, you kind of start to see this slow admiration for Gatsby's hope and that unbridled romance allotted only for Daisy. And you see that start to fester in Nick Carraway, and so the compliment seems deserving. And alongside that, I found myself loving Gatsby. I thought, like, you kind of find Gatsby to grow on you by the end, rather. And accompanying that, I also grew to resent how everything had left him behind, and his dream behind after his death. It's a scene and a book, and the sort of romance, and the sort of group of characters that you'd want to live in and amongst forever. And you can, in a way, within the confines of your own mind in this book. But obviously I'm not saying all the characters are perfect, but it's just there's such a degree of realness to each fucking character in the book. Everything's so real and so raw, even in this sort of pretentious 1950s, 40s American vernacular. There's still a degree of like great like individuality amongst each characters, and it's raw and real and not explicit. And I grew to love Gatsby by the end, and I grew to relate to Nick Carraway by the end, and I hated Tom Buchanan all throughout. And I grew to resent Daisy a little bit by the end too. I don't blame her. I probably would have done the same thing had I been in her position, but I grew to resent her, and I grew to absolutely adore this book. It just takes you to a different world so vividly. Like, it's so crazy because some of the actual scenes in the Great Gatsby movie, like the locations and the scenes, I literally pictured like word for word, 100% accuracy, with 100% accuracy in my mind. I had a picture, a sort of movie playing in my mind. And the scenery used in the movie was literally exactly what I had pictured in my mind from reading the book, which shows that the book just can transport you to this whole other world. Like, you will be immersed by this book, because it's not just this sort of dopamine, I'm gonna hit you with some action sort of book at the start. It's a city with sewers, if that makes sense. It's not a palace, it's a city with sewers. Really complicated, really multifaceted, but really well developed. And as a result, you'll find yourself immersed, and possibly by the end, longing that you were in this sort of world, or longing for more. And the writing was brilliant too. I think I yapped for a bit too long here, so I think I'm just going to read some notes, or not notes, quotes. My Kindle's struggling because it's like 8%. Typically I highlight what I'd like to steal from, or what I just think is brilliant. And I was highlighting pretty much every other sentence by, I think, the third quarter. Like, for instance, this little section, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked out the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. He had come a long way to this blue lawn, and his dream must have seemed so close that he could hardly fail to grasp it. He did not know that it was already behind him, somewhere back in that vast obscurity beyond the city, where the dark fields of the Republic rolled on under the night. And then the famous last section, it eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we will run faster, stretch our arms out further, and one fine morning, so we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. Great stuff. Again, I just never feel like I have enough time to talk about these books, because it's already like 20-30 minutes into the narration, and I still haven't talked about the sort of commentary Scott F. Fitzgerald was doing on, American culture, the Western culture, and how it was non-compatible with how humans should live, and the commentary becomes apparent in sections like this. I see now that this has been a story of the West. After all, Tom and Gatsby, Daisy and Jordan and I were all Westerners, and perhaps we possessed some deficiency in common which made us subtly unadaptable to Eastern life. This sort of commentary, but to be honest, that sort of thing doesn't interest me. Like, I noticed it throughout the book, but it doesn't interest me to talk about or think about. What enamors me more is the characters, the stories between the characters and so on, so I don't really, it doesn't give me much joy to talk about, whatever comparisons of American culture, chauvinism, whatever, hedonism, I don't know. It doesn't interest me, that sort of thing. I like to talk and think about the characters, the interpersonal stories between characters, the literature, the writing. That's what interests me. So I suppose if I'm leaving something out, it's not, immediate to my mind, and I don't want to make these too long. So if I'm leaving something out, I might have noticed it, but it just didn't enamor me or magnetize me enough to talk about, so do forgive me. Although I'm saving you from an hour-long episode, which God forbid, Jesus Christ, an hour of me talking. You're welcome. Oh my god. He must have looked up at an unfamiliar sky through frightening leaves and shivered as he found out what a grotesque thing a rose is. What a fucking line. It's so good. And how raw the sunlight was upon the scarcely created grass. It's so fucking good. Like, how good is that? Because obviously a rose is really pretty. They have thorns on them. He was sort of looking at the rose from a top-down perspective, seeing its beauty, but upon, trying to grab it by the stem, he felt its prick, and seeing from a bird's eye, or rather a different perspective, he's seen how grotesque a rose can be, because, all that hope has been extinguished. Gatsby. This is Nick Carraway talking about Gatsby. What a line, though. What a line. I mean, you can definitely see why this is regarded widely as a classic. It deserves to be, Where would this rank? Really highly for me. But the thing is, I'm more into books for idea as opposed to commentary, or I'm more into books for ideas. This is really good though. Really, really fucking good. It might be my most favorite recent book I've read, I must say. Perhaps out of the ones I've reviewed. I think Flowers for Algernon I prefer the most, actually. Flowers for Algernon had the same sort of immersion, but a far more interesting story. But this was written better, so. And I think this is where you start to feel a bit of like a sympathy for Gatsby. I suppose Daisy'll call too, Gatsby says. He looked at Nick Carraway anxiously, as if he hoped he'd corroborate this. Like, he's like, she'll call, right? She's gonna call me, right? And you can kind of see, like, he's a very, he's got pure intentions. Very, very pure intentions. Well, shaky way to put that. But, there is essentially one goal at the bottom floor for Gatsby, which is Daisy. And you could see just how committed he is to it. Or perhaps the idea of it, which the book presses on a lot, is like, perhaps it's just the idea of Daisy. Or the idea of the first moments he shared with Daisy. So, but yeah, God, I've been speaking for so fucking long. I'm sorry if this eclipses like 25 minutes. I'm sorry. This was nightmarish. Even then, I didn't even scratch the surface. There are people like English professors, whatever, who are probably cringing at this. I'm sorry. I don't know anything. I have no formal studies in English. So, yeah, I'm stupid, but this is what I thought, and I really like the fucking book. I don't know why it gets so much hate online. I do, actually. The start is slow, but yeah, really, really good. And don't watch the movie. I won't be making that mistake again. Fucking hideous movie. I don't care. Argue with me in the comments about it. How about that? The movie was shit, okay? But yeah, that was all. Do have a wonderful... What's the next holiday? Easter? Do have a wonderful Easter. Oh shit, I need to pick a book. What am I doing? The one for February I'm going to pick is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I know there's multiple versions of it, but I'm going to start with version 1, obviously. So yeah, February's book will be Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I fucking butchered that, didn't I? Fuck. Sorry. But yeah, that's the next book, Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Do get to reading that, so... Hopefully this one will have a quick start too, because I don't have the attention span to read another Great Gatsby or a Moby Dick, so I might be reading other books in the meantime as well, but and I will review those. But I don't know when my next main channel upload is going to be. Easter, happy Easter, I think. Good day to you all. Yeah, thanks for listening, if you have. I don't know why, but cheers. God, I might read just a shit book in between, this and Before the Coffee Gets Cold, just to fucking be able to hate on something I've wanted to for so long. God. But yeah, what the fuck am I doing here still? Bye now.